Hey English 112, Miss Brewer here for your week 2 lecture video. I'm going to do part 1 and part 2 in this same video. So from here on out, your weeks will be broken up into part 1 and part 2. Your part 1 work will generally be due on Wednesday nights, and your part 2 work will be due on Sunday nights. I will open up both sections so you can work ahead if you choose to. So for this week, you guys are going to be participating in your written poetry discussion forum. You're actually going to do 2 discussion forums. So for part 1, you are going to write your initial post. In your initial post, you'll utilize the poetry discussion responses. So if you open up that page, you'll see that there's questions listed. I don't want you to answer the questions. I want you to use those questions to help you to create a discussion post, reaction post. That's 300 to 500 words. You should be quoting the poem that you've selected. You're only selecting one poem. Everyone is required to write a theme statement at the end of their initial post. So you want to get that initial post in ASAP. My suggestion would be to get it in by Wednesday at the latest. And then you want to have your 2 peer replies done by Friday, 11:55, because you're actually going to be working on the other discussion post for the second part of the week. And so after, my suggestion to you would be to write your initial post first this week, and that's about the written poetry, so groups A and B that you read last week. So you're writing about that. You're going to choose 1 poem from group A and 1 poem from group B to create your initial post. So try to find poems that have a common theme. That will be helpful for you as we write the paper next week, because that's what you're going to be doing for the paper. So get your initial post done as soon as possible. At the latest Wednesday, but the earlier the better, because you guys have work coming up next week that has another discussion forum. So after you get your initial post done for the discussion forum, then I would suggest that you look at week 2's poems. This week we're going to be looking at spoken word poetry. You are required to watch all of the poems, and then for your journal, which is due Wednesday, so you'll need to watch all of these poems by Wednesday. For your journal on Wednesday, you'll choose 2 spoken word poems to write about for that journal, and make sure that's in by Wednesday at 11:55. Your attendance assignment for the first part of the week is, I want you guys to go back into the syllabus, and I just want you to summarize. I want, in your own words, for you to explain to me what is the late policy for this course, because it's a pretty strict one because it's such a short course. So in your own words, explain the late policy from the syllabus for the attendance assignment. That is due Wednesday night. Okay, so getting into week 2, part 2, which runs essentially from Thursday to Sunday. You guys are going to review the MLA PowerPoint. I'll go over a couple of things about that. It's also going to talk about the literary analysis paper. I'm going to talk about that next week, so I won't go over those things today. What I do want to go over, I just pulled up the PowerPoint. I just want to highlight some basics for you. Basic MLA format: Times New Roman 12-point font, double spaced, 1-inch margins all the way around. You should have a header at the top right of every page. The header has your last name and the page number inserted, and you use the header function in Microsoft Word to do that. And then also an MLA heading occurs only on page 1, and that is in the top left. You don't use the header function, you just type regularly 1-inch margin. Your name goes first, then my name, then the course, and then the date. And the date is, of course, day, month, and year. So that's the MLA heading. The header and the heading are 2 different things. All right, so be aware of that. When you're in MLA format, your title should be centered. Your titles should always have like the content of the paper. So your title should not be the assignment. So when you write a literary analysis paper, the title should not be literary analysis paper. It should be whatever is indicative of what you're writing about in the paper. And then that title should be the same font as everything else. So no bolding or underlining or anything like that. It's the exact same font. Where do you go if you need help with formatting and documentation? You utilize Purdue OWL's website, and that will be a question for you at some point in time in this class. The answer is not ask your teacher. The answer is for you as an independent student to utilize that website, that Purdue Online Writing Lab, OWL, okay, so that you can get some help if you have questions when you're writing. MLA format requires parenthetical in-text citations. When you write your paper next week, you will be required to utilize parenthetical in-text citations. The MLA format, the rule is that what goes inside the parentheses is the first word or couple of words of the full citation from the works cited page. A lot of people like to just jump and say author's last name, page number, which generally is applicable. But when there is no author, then what do you write? So really the answer to that question is the first word or couple of words from the works cited page. So what is first? If it's the author's last name, great, then use that. If there are two authors, you have to use both of their last names. If there are three or more, you have to use et al, which is Latin for and more, I think, or something like that, and others, something like that. So if there is no author listed, then you're using the title of the article or the title of the web page or whatever, and you'll need to make sure that you include that in the parentheses the exact same way that it's written on the works cited page. So if it's in quotation marks on the works cited page, it goes in quotation marks in the parentheses when you're doing a parenthetical citation. So just to reiterate, what goes in the parenthetical citation, it's the first word or couple of words from the works cited page. Your works cited page is always the last page of your paper. It should be in alphabetical order. You should have complete citations in MLA format. They should have a hanging indentation, which means that it starts flush left, and then for the first line, and then for every line after, it's indented, and then you come back out when you do your next citation. You list those in alphabetical order, which I already said. They need to be fully complete. Always you can look at Purdue OWL and check and see what those citations are supposed to look like to make sure that they are done correctly. So the rest of this PowerPoint is going to talk about your literary analysis paper, so I'm going to go over that with you next week. Those were the basics that you needed for the MLA format, okay? So it's basic MLA formatting. Your MLA review quiz counts as your attendance assignment for the second part of week 2. So I'll mark you present in the class for Wednesdays and for Sundays, okay? When you have your attendance assignment, Wednesdays and Sundays. And that's your attendance assignment. And then you guys are going to take part in the spoken word discussion forum. So what I want you guys to do is have your initial post for the discussion forum written by Saturday, and 2 peer replies done by Sunday. So it's a quick turnaround, all right? Make sure you get those done. And finally, you do have a required reading. So that's chapter 3. I highly encourage you to download the PDF, print it, highlight and annotate it. It will help you to analyze your spoken word poems. You are also required to cite this particular thing in your paper next week. So you want to go ahead and read that. You might want to read it before you do your analysis of the spoken word poem that you choose, because it might help enhance that analysis. So just to kind of reiterate, for this week, you have things due on Wednesday. You have your week 2 attendance assignment, which again, rewrite that, or just in your own words, explain the late policy from the syllabus. That's your week 2 attendance assignment that's due on Wednesday. For the discussion forum, I want you to post your initial reply for that first discussion forum. And let's say if you could post the initial reply by Wednesday at the latest, okay? But then be ready to do 2 peer replies for Friday. And then your journal 4 about the spoken word poems is due Wednesday night. For part 2, you'll have your MLA review quiz due by Sunday. You have your spoken word discussion forum needs to be complete by Sunday. And that's it for the second half of the week. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email. We can chat on the phone. We can meet virtually. Just remember that I know it's a lot, but you need to stay on top of all of these assignments, because it is a very, very quick course. We're almost halfway done. So yeah, reach out if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to address those, and I will check in with you guys next week.